If you ain't redlining, you ain't headlining. You're a first-time user of Ableton Live. You download Ableton Live, you bought it, you got the full version, but you don't know how it works. What if I made a beat from absolute scratch? How Ableton Live works. Not the functions, because I think what can get confusing is looking at all the functions.
Welcome to the club!
But really, what we need to figure out is how do I take something from complete scratch and turn it into something? Now, let's do something. I am going to start completely over from scratch. Let me go and remove this from sidebar. I'm going to remove a couple things from my sidebar. Let's move from side. We're going to remove it. We're starting over. Starting over. Matter of fact, see all these tracks? I'm in the absolute beginning stage of my life of Ableton, and I need to know how it works. Matter of fact, all the little MIDI joints I got set up. Hold on there, player. I got something important to tell you. If any of you guys who are watching want to watch all this back, I currently have a thing going on called Full Studio. Access $8 per month for the entire catalog of all these Twitch streams. It goes back to 2021, all the way up until right now. As well, the Access Plus option that gives you access to the catalog, the consultations, and a 30% discount code to anything I drop in the future for my sound packs right here. So if you're watching this, cop the full access, please. Please. I'm gonna walk away now. For more information, cop something from my store, wait for the email, and join the Discord for more. Now back to the video. We're deleting it. Start over. So let's say you download Ableton Live for the first time and you see this window, right? Let's just say if you were to look at what Ableton is offering, all you want to do is make something. But how would we go about doing that when there's nothing there? First and foremost, you got to be intentional. Whenever it comes to a new DAW, a brand new experience, you have to understand that this DAW, this space, was purely made for you to create sounds and then record sounds. Ableton Live not only records sounds, generates sounds, but it has the capabilities of doing much more. You can see I got one little vocal track, and you see this big old blank space where it says drop files and devices here. If you want to drop files and devices here, what are devices? What are files? What do I put in this space? I'm glad you asked that question. Think about it like a big hub. This hub is intentionally meant for the purpose of putting a channel for your signals to play out a sound. You can only do it two ways in Ableton, either through audio track or a MIDI track. MIDI tracks are a channel where you can play instruments, like plugins of some sort. And plugins like this can range from the plugins that Ableton Live have created, or downloadable plugins that you can get online anywhere that does not include Ableton. One of the biggest helpers that have helped me since the beginning, if you have Ableton Live on a MacBook as well, I think this also attributes to Windows, so don't think I'm excluding Windows computers when I say this. See this little function here that says File, Edit, Create, Playback, View, Navigate, Options, Help. This is gonna be your guide. So my honest opinion is if you don't know what you're doing, highly suggest to start here. You wanna create something, right? You wanna make something. Well, I want to add a sound and more sounds. See how it says insert audio track? See how it says audio track? Can you keep this posted on Twitch account, please? I'm gonna post this everywhere. You will see this on YouTube tomorrow morning. Insert audio track. See how it says this little ooey dooey infinite kind of sign? That is a command sign. The equivalent to this on a Windows computer would be your Windows button. Windows and the letter T. And make sure there's a capital T at that too. Well, it doesn't have to be. It's just T. Hit insert audio track. Now, let me go ahead and delete this too. I don't even need this. All right. You have an audio track. And what no one explained to me is that Ableton Live was made for really one purpose in the very beginning. And the purpose was to be able to make music live. This function here is called clip view. And think about it like this. These slots are almost like, it's almost like a tunnel for a race car. Those tunnels when race cars are about to get ready to drive, the little small speedy ones. And these slots are really intended for that race car to go at any point. And the cool part about it is Ableton automatically sets it up where any audio that you put inside of a clip will automatically loop itself, because that's what the intention behind a clip track is. If I wanted to add a sound to this thing, Ableton already hooks you up with sounds. They hook you up with all these random presets that you can scroll and be like, oh, cool. But sometimes we get shocked to our system of like, I don't know what to add first. Well, first off, let's think about foundation. What do you like? Do you like drums? Do you like piano? Do you like bass? Well, let's go ahead and grab drums, because I love drums. And the beautiful part is they got a folder called drums. And if you don't know where all the drums are, they got whole instruments. We're going to just randomly select a drum kit. It's a DMX. That's a driller kit. These are all stock sounds, by the way. This comes with Ableton. I kind of like that. All right, we're going to click and drag it. See how it said here, drop files and devices? This little box here is a device. It's a device. Whether you know it or not, this little sign means it is a combination of devices put inside of one device. We're going to grab this Feet Pete, click it, and drag it to this random space. All right. Well, what am I looking at, Kaelin? I'm glad you asked. This is what I like to call the drum pad. And the drum pad holds drum samples. Now, we can get deep into this one day, but I'm only going to show y'all the knobs and the buttons. The knobs have effects, but you ain't got to worry about that. Now, these little buttons have a mute, which is you mute the sound. You can play the sound in the middle.
Check it out.
And then you have a solo right there. So if you want to just solo that one sound, you'll see that this button makes that particular box blue and everything else becomes muted. Look at the little M is fuzzed out. Off rip, you can
check it out.
I like that. I like these sounds. Ooh. That's cool. And I also have a drum pad here where I'm sitting with an Ableton push. First time Ableton user, hey. I kind of like that. I like these. By itself, it sounds great. So. That's cool, right? So all these little sounds are sitting on a pad. It's sitting on a controller. If you got a controller hooked up, it's automatically synced up, so you ain't got to worry about it. Ableton automatically will sync your MIDI all up. That's the cool thing about Ableton. It's just quick. You're able to do anything. But so, as I was saying, so let's say you want to start off with the drums, and you see this little fancy schmancy thing. So what's cool about this setup is when you automatically have a MIDI, like a MIDI track setup, all your stuff with controllers, let's say you have a controller hooked up, it automatically will recognize that a controller is selected, and your boxes like this on your MIDI will now turn to circles. And so when you press a circle for the clip, it is recording you right now. That little clip, if you double click on it, you see this on the bottom, it's recording. Press the space bar, start, stop. So yeah, what is hilarious is most times, and this is where I used to mess up at, I did not know anything beyond this when I first started messing with Ableton, until I started discovering, where's the metronome? Isn't there a metronome anywhere? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because when I pressed this button, you heard it in the beginning. But Kaelin, when I press the button, I don't know where anything else is. Glad you said something about it. Well, they don't exclusively say that the metronome is here, except for a little bit of clues. Can you guess which one it is? See this little circle that's open and the circle that's closed? This bad boy is the metronome. Yep, the metronome is right there. And so next time you press the button, it's gonna go. Your metronome's gonna go. Now, let's say you stop it and you're like, all right, I wanna play it. But Kay, the metronome's still on. It is. Turn it off. But when you record, you're gonna need it. But isn't there a way where you can have the metronome running as you're recording? Yes, that is definitely a possible way. Let me show you how. So go back to that metronome. You see how we pressed it and it went yellow? Well, there's a little menu next to it. There is this option. When you click the down arrow, you can enable it only while recording. So that means if you want to hear the metronome while you record, you simply press that little option, and every time you go to record, the metronome is going to be on when you record. So watch. Actually, wait, that's actually crazy. Hold on. Enable only while recording. Yep. So let's try it again. Oop. Yep. So now look at this. Play again. Now, that's how it works. So let's lay down some actual parts. So I'm going to turn on the metronome. And this also, too, is the tempo. You can also tap the tempo. I kind of want to tap the tempo. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, I want to let that run. I want to let that go. I want the metronome to be on the whole time. And we'll move on from this after I lay this down. So once the metronome is there, let's lay a little pattern down. So see this little button? You're going to press it. And we're going to lay a pattern down, real basic. Like that. All right. So what's crazy is this. I'm going to play it back. My timing was so early. Now, here's the cool part. This MIDI clip is going to be one of your best friends. MIDI is going to be your best friend. If you ever use anything like this drum kit, all other drum kits are exactly like this. So they will also show the sounds that you're using and where they're being placed at on this little MIDI thing. Another deeper thought is this random piano roll. The way MIDI is set up, they use notes, like actual piano notes, to create slots for all the sounds you're using. So amongst a piano, if you were to pull up an actual piano, these slots are all sitting on a piano roll, which if you were to open up an actual piano roll, you'll be able to press the same notes and you will hear the same sounds come out from that MIDI channel. That's a whole nother thing. But all MIDI controllers are based off of the slots of every possible note you can play on a piano, on a MIDI piano roll. And that's what you guys see here. And before we get into that section, we just want to make a beat. Okay, I just want to make a beat. Why are you taking so long? I'll show you, though. No, hold on. We just getting the little basics knocked out. So you can see here that there's a crazy open space. And you see that the drums are all out of quantization. Well, here's something cool. Your mouse is the God tool. Your mouse can do literally anything. Whatever you want this thing to do, whatever you want the drums to do, you can do that. And I'll tell you exactly how. Me, because I register that it is off beat, I want to make it on beat. And as an experienced user, I would simply just select all of this and move it to the right. You can select certain notes and move it. And you'll notice that it'll start to exactly snap to the grid, right? Now, here's the craziest part. We'll play it again. I only want to get this loop. So there's a little looping bar that's sitting right here above the whole mixing area. Not mixing, but the measurements of your clip. So you can click and drag this. And you notice that this little arrow here also moved to. That is what I like to call your start head. There's also one on the opposite side over here, and that's called the end clip head. So if you want to make this the same length, you see it ends right here. Boom. Click it and drag it. You notice both the playhead that looping bar confuses me a little bit. Imagine that this looping bar plays anything that is inside of it. So think about it as like your area of allowance. You are allowing anything that is inside this looping bar to be played. This right here, it is not just a looping bar, but you can also move the looping bar everywhere. This is going to become crucial for later because this doesn't only just apply to MIDI. This applies to audio too. So the thing about Ableton is this. If you're able to do something through MIDI, you're able to do something through audio. So if you want to do the same things, the same functions apply. And so you hear all this? I want to quantize it. What is quantization? Glad you asked. I want to quantize it to the grid. I want to take the beats of all these little MIDI, little pop-up blocks and make sure these bad boys are sitting perfectly on the lines. And so we're going to select. What if the melody looping bar, for example, is longer as the drums loops bar? I'll show you guys an example. I'll definitely show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. And there's actually a fancy schmancy thing. I wish someone would have showed me this. I had the pleasure of learning that I can set this measurement of any kind of loop that I get. Everything in Ableton can be placed everywhere. And so if I wanted to specifically make this say 1, which it doesn't really matter, but if you really want it to be 1, I wanted to start at 1, press on your mouse the right button and see how it says set 1.1.1 here? That's the very beginning of the bar. Now watch this. Boop. Oh, Kaelin, what just happened? I see all this space. Well, let me show you something. You don't have to have all that. There's a little fancy schmancy magnifying glass over here on the very bottom, and you can zoom in. So if you zoom in, you click it, and everything about that space goes away. But Kaelin, the space, there's a little blob here. Can I just get rid of it? How would I do that? Click on it. Double click it. It disappeared. Yes, it sure did. And now you have, if you go back over here and zoom, you have a clean drum loop. It's not quantized. I'm glad you asked. So let's go ahead and press this looping mechanism. The reason why you would press this thing and make sure this function is on, by the way. This activates your loop, by the way. It's very important that you know this information. It's very important that you loop. Press the loop and let it run. I want to quantize it. Cool. So how I would quantize, select everything. And this is how I would do it. Hit your right button on the mouse and hit quantize settings. Now, Ableton has changed this function. Originally, it used to be an open menu, but now it is only here. It is only just here. They have the grid where you can actually quantize all the hits specifically. So let's say all these things, they're sitting in a spot. Eighth notes, fourth notes, fourth notes. So fourth notes, to give you a little perspective, they are this entire block. So I'm gonna show y'all what a fourth of a beat is. So see these empty spaces? You're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just repeats over and over again. And so if we were to quantize it to a fourth, that means every single note that is sitting on this MIDI is going to simply sit on one of these 4 joints. No matter what's sitting in the middle, it'll automatically either slide to the right or to the left. I think this one might slide to the right. But I want to keep everything that I have pocket-wise. I just need it to be sitting on beat. So let's go with eighth notes. Let's go ahead and create eighth notes. Look at this. See how all of this is sitting? This is a basic reference for all of your current grids. So if you want to take your notes and have them sit on this line, highly suggest selecting eighth notes and see how it just randomly, all of them just randomly went to that. 100% they are on the grid. Now, this is also a new function in Ableton that they have not told me about, except for me learning about it. You can change the amount of quantization you are throwing on any MIDI track as well. Audio does this too. So see this? It says 100%. You can dial it back. I'm gonna play it. And that's perfectly on beat. I kind of want to make it still feel a little human though. Great. Go back to amount and you'll notice the notes are starting to slide a little bit back to its original space. For human feel, let's put it on 50%. Oh, this bothers me. Okay, I don't want that sound. Oh, cool. You want to get rid of it? Click it again. I don't understand why the sound keeps playing whenever I click on it. You notice every time you click on the sound, it keeps playing? Maybe you don't want any of these that to happen. You don't want that sound to happen. It's just like, certain people get freaked out whenever they hear sounds. So maybe you don't want to hear any of the sounds when you click on it. See this little blue headline? This little blue icon? It says blue, right?
Hey, welcome to
the blue in Ableton indicates this thing that I like to call solo. So anytime you see the color blue, like a function, you press the button, it turns blue. That means something is being soloed. You press this button, and when it's not on, it blanks out. But yeah, if you want to turn it off, just turn this off. And anytime you click on the notes, you will never hear any of the sounds. So let's press play. I like this. I kind of want to add hi-hats. Oh, where are the hi-hats? Let's add the hi-hats. Let's add the hi-hats. Ooh, Kay, I like that. But I want to be, Kay, I want to add what I just did, but now I got to go back and record it again? Not necessarily. What do you mean? Well, I'm going to tell you something that is very vital. What is very vital is that every single MIDI moment that you capture can be recorded. You can? Well, how can I access that? How can I access that information? Well, let's go back up here to this thing. You see this button right here? What does it look like? Looks like a playhead. Looks like a little triangle. It plays music. Cool. What is this one? It stops. Yeah, I like that. Digga. What's this one? It's red and records. Cool. Now, I don't know what the heck this plus button is. I'm glad you asked. So, in Ableton, anytime you record MIDI, there is a function where you can take this function here. And anytime you play MIDI, you can record on top of it. That's fascinating. Cool. How would that be usable in this function? Well, it'll make more sense when we get out of the clip view. There's a separate view called session view. And so what's crazy is there's another function over here. And we'll get here later, but this right here is important. So what is this? Is the question. Well, there's this thing that I like to call quick capture. If you just played a MIDI, the last moment that you have just played on MIDI has been captured, even if you didn't physically capture it. Well, how can I get it? How can I get that? Press this button. Oh, what just happened? Well, all those moments where I was playing the drum back to back, the MIDI was simultaneously recording at the same time. It captured, recorded everything. I like this. It's cool. Now, I see again that it's just back open again with all this space. How do I get rid of it? Well, to make things a lot more easier for you, there's a little function inside of Ableton. If you second click your button on your mouse, this is what'll happen. A menu will pop up. In this menu, you have some options. And really, what you want to do is this. Let's go ahead and select. I want to select this whole thing. So you got this thing selected. Matter of fact, let's do something even better than that. Let's click this loop bar. Remember the loop bar you said, Crash? The loop bar is important. You can hit select here, press that button again for the menu to pop back up, and you're going to scroll all the way to the top. Now you're going to see a funny little setting, and it says crop clip to time selection. What does that mean? Well, everything you just selected can now be strictly selected, and anything that is not inside that bar will get removed. Care to show me what that looks like? Thank you for asking me. I'm glad you asked me. Let's do it. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna turn off the metronome. Okay, I like this. This is hard. All right, I gotta add a bass line or something because this is kind of boring to hear the drums over. I'm glad you said that. So let's go ahead and make another sound. Let's go look up some sounds. So keep it running. I kind of want to turn it down. Don't worry about that, big dog. Why not worry about turning it down? It's in Kaelin. It's in the red. I don't understand why it's in the red already. Let me tell you something. When you are making music, if you're making music and it's in the red automatically, don't worry. You're just making the beat already. Don't worry about it being in the red. You can always worry about that later. We'll get there. Don't worry about it just yet. You just learning the basics, big dog. Don't worry about it. Rare Species said, Kay, what if I want to add a sample and the timing is off? You know what? Let's actually do something different. I downloaded this sample on YouTube and I want to make a beat out of it. I want to add it with these drums. All right, cool. So let me go to the handy dandy YouTube into MP3 app, because of course that's what the modern day musician uses. They use the modern day MP3, YouTube to MP3. Finding key of the sample part. Oh my gosh. So let's see here. Oh, we got BBL Drizzy. I might do that a little later. Let's pick, I kind of want to use, what do I have? What do I have? All right, this is cool. I might have to go and download some stuff. But all right, this is where everything fascinating gets. Now that you have made, screenshot all the digs. It's random songs, bro. All right, so I want to be able to add my thing in, but I don't want to keep adding. The first time I made beats, I kept adding stuff from my Windows Finder, and I don't know, I need to have a better way of doing this. I'm glad you said this. So see this little function right here? It says add folder. Click on it. With this function, any folder that you currently have sitting inside of your computer, you can select it to pop up at any point on your session. So when you downloaded that YouTube to MP3, where did all these files go? I think they went to my YouTube folder. You know where the YouTube folder is? Yeah, sure. Let me look that up. Go straight to the YouTube folder. Go to YouTube MP3. There we go. Hit open. Boom. Now watch this. You click this folder and every single thing in that folder is going to be sitting in the browser now. So now,
This is number one.
shout out to Isaiah Falls. Love TKO. I downloaded that sample. I want to add it to the session. All right, cool. How would I do that? Well, let me show you a little secret. You can click and either do two things. you can drag it into this audio file, in this audio space, in this little clip. Or why does it look like that, Kaelin? Let me tell you something. This is what I highly recommend you to do if you don't know how to use this. Grab your file and just drag it into that blank space and watch what happens. Oh, okay, cool. Do I press play now? Yeah, sure. But it's not going to be exactly on beat. Why not? Trust me, it's not. I feel like it's going to. No, it's not going to be exactly on beat. All right, here we go. Kaelin, it's not on beat. What do I do? All right, so let me give you a little school lesson real quick. Let's mute the drums. How would I do that? See this little number that's sitting right below your channel? Turn that off. Ooh. Now when you press play, you won't hear it. Oh, so it's a muting channel. Yes, it is. It turns back on. So with this light indicates that the light is on and you'll be able to hear the sound for that channel. And let me turn it off then. Now, how do I make this sample match the BPM? I'm glad you asked. So we're going to have to do something specific. You ready for this? So the beautiful thing about Ableton is that it has this ability to warp. It has this beautiful ability to warp. And I'll show you here. Warping is the function that allows you to take whatever beat you have and you can perfectly match it tempo-wise to anything that's inside of the session. So if you want to turn this beat into something syncable, I highly recommend you to zoom in on where you wanted to sample at. You got to find a part you want to sample. Cool, let's find this part I want to sample. We got to zoom in here and look. What I do is change the view from vertical to horizontal so I can see each stem. Yup. So you can zoom it up. You can make it small, make it really big. Look at this. Like this. Now, let me go ahead and peep game on something real quick. So check this out. I want to be able to pick a downbeat, right? Right. And if I wanted to find the downbeat of this beat, what would I do? Well, find where the kick starts. I heard it right about here. Let's make sure. Right here. This is where I heard it. So you got to zoom in. And if you're curious to know how to do it without a mouse, you can also do a zoom in using Shift plus or Shift minus. So Shift minus and Shift plus to be able to zoom in and zoom out on any clip you got. And you can move around on that too. You can move your mouse around and it'll move around. So we need to make sure this kick is a downbeat. Cool. How do we do that? Well, click it. See that little part right here you just clicked? That was where the downbeat hit. And to make sure, play it again. Okay, cool. But how do I make it the downbeat? I'm glad you asked. Well, we did this thing earlier with the MIDI, where you could set a certain part of the clip you're using as the 1.1.1. Remember that? Sorta. How do you activate it? Well, hover over this little warp marker and open up that little menu when you press that little right button on your mouse. This menu should pop up. All right, what do I press next? Set 1.1 here. Aha! All right, is it on beat now? Not necessarily. What do I need to do next? I'm glad you asked. Well, let's zoom out a little bit. There's a little function in Ableton why I told you it was a warping mechanism. The warping mechanism allows you to be able to take any part of this thing and stretch it. Think about an elastic band that you could pretty much set at any point. That's how you can treat any part of a sample. You can warp any part of a sample. Yeah. So if I wanted to put it on beat, where would I need to put the snare? Well, let's press play and hear where it is. I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Don't look for the snare. Look for the repeating phrase. What's the repeating phrase? Well, you heard the kick drum. So that is what I like to call a complete phrase. I want to take that phrase and map it to the beat. How would I do that? You yanking my chain right now. I'm gonna show you. See where that little second phrase began? Right here. You gonna click this bad boy. Click and drag it until you see 1. You should notice something familiar happening with these little individual peaks. They are slowly but surely being synced up because the sample has its own time, but what you want to do is make the sample your own time. This is how it works. Let me show you. So you're gonna grab this. Oh, cool. Now play with the drums and see what happens. It got off beat towards the end. Let me help you real quick, big dog. I got you. So check this out. If you don't know now, so I'm gonna do something very, very interesting here. We're gonna double click. We're gonna double click that second downbeat. Yeah. Why? Well, something about clicking this thing right here, something about clicking this locks that part of the sample in place. It does. And so if you can lock this thing in place, you can also lock other parts of the sample in place. Interesting. So what would I need to do from this point on? Well, you see where the peaks sit a little bit behind and a little bit before? Your goal is to make sure they sit perfectly on that grid. How would I do that? You click it and make sure you drag it till it sits on beat. And you notice how the sample now has some sort of consistency. You see the peaks that are coming a little bit before? That's intuition that I would like to use to make sure you know how to sample on time. So my greatest explanation I can give to sampling and making sure something is perfectly on beat is making sure those individual 1 peaks right here where that number 4 is, number 5, they're perfectly on beat. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna need you to grab this thing and drag it onto the number 4. Do it and click it and drag it. You're gonna notice snap. What I do next? Do it again. Where? Right here? You're catching it. Cool. Now press play. That's hard, but I only want to loop this section. I'm glad that you said this because this is crazy. So what if I wanted to loop that section? Well, there's a looping bracket on every single clip that you use. See how this bad boy is just chilling? Well, you can simply just click and grab and put it over the function. But for whatever reason, it's not sitting with the, I know, but both of them simultaneously work together and separately. What do you mean by that? Well, for whatever reason in Ableton, you can set your beginning cues of the sample and the ending cues of your sample to be literally anywhere. That's the powerful part about Ableton. Because even though something does not exist here, does not necessarily mean you can't access it. You can always move and maneuver every part of the sample. That's what makes Ableton powerful. So if you wanted to loop just those 4 phrases, I highly advise you to grab that bar that's sitting above the play head right here, the start head, and just hover it right above. I just clicked on it, but everything's selected. Let me put you on game real quick. You only want to select this part to this part, correct? Let me go ahead and select. And I'm going to put you on game too. You don't have to click and drag every time. I don't? No, you don't. There's multiple methods for this madness. So let me put you on game. See that handy schmandy shift button on your keyboard? Hold shift. And I want you to simply click up until number 5 here. But don't click on number 5. Click right below here. So hold shift and that button. Oh, what just happened? The area you selected Everything that you just selected just got clicked on. But it's not perfect. You see how this is a space? Let me show you something. Click on that number 5 by holding the shift button. See that line? You're gonna need to click on that line. Click on the line. This line right here? Yes, click on that line. Aha. Now what I do next? You're gonna second click it and you're gonna select loop selection. Yep. Press play, big dog. Ooh, now you got a beat. Perfect loop. Perfect loop. All right, perfect. Now here's something crazy. If you want to get experimental, we're going to have a different selection for this at some point, probably tomorrow. We'll probably break this bad boy down tomorrow, probably. But there is another function where you can experiment with the stretching of it. But we won't go there. We won't go that far. Ableton has so much more in store. So I'm going to show you one very clever thing about this. Cool. Well, you've already felt pretty comfortable on the clip view of Ableton. Now let me show you a different monster. You ready for it? All right. You're going to want to press the tab button. Okay. Tab button on my computer? Sure. On my controller? Yeah. Press it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I don't see the clips anymore. Where'd it go? Let me show you something powerful about Ableton, pimp. Because you just did a bulk of the hard work. This is the secondary form behind Ableton Live. Ableton Live also can do things in a time-lapse view. What's a time-lapse view? I'm glad you asked. Well, let's say you wanted to look at a whole picture and know how to predict where certain things start and certain things end. That is what I like to call the time lapse. It lapses over time. You can see the entire time of it. So your best friend in this regard is going to be this fancy smancy little gray box that has a little magnifying glass on top of it. You're going to want to click on the very left-hand side of this box. Over here, no, that is the search bar. Where is it? Oh, right here. Yes, click this part right here. All right, so what next? Well, you've already laid the groundwork down for beats, right? Let me show you a little trick. You've already laid down the drums. You've already laid down the sample. Right. I'm going to show you something powerful. I want you to press that record button. Why? Trust me and press the record button. You trust me, right? Yeah, I do. All right. Here goes nothing. Press stop. What just happened? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, in Ableton, on the time-lapse view, there's this thing where people who make clips can also take those same clips and transition them to be looked at in a full time-lapse view. Ableton is great for this factor because people often like to jam when they make music. And so Ableton had to create a way for people to be able to create loops and constant jams, whether it be samples or whether it be MIDI, that you can be able to use at any given point. So if you want to be able to press play would export the loop right now, talking about beats for sale. Listen, we're going to go deep, bro. We're going to go deep in this series. Yeah, let's say, for instance, you want to be able to take this exact same thing and loop it for 5 or not 5, but 4 bars. How would I do that? How would I do that? So curious, if you see that little looping function, that is going to be your best friend. So far, it has been your best friend, and you've been using it in your MIDI, and you've used it in your clips, using your audio, but how do you apply it to this function? This function is a master version of what the clips showcase, which is the ability for time-lapse. So if you want to activate this, there's a special little function over here that allows your clips to now become tracks. And so you can press this great orange button to begin turning it into a track. Oh, just press it. Press it. Ah! What just happened? You not exported because there's no exporting going on. But you just transition those same clips to now become loops on the time lapse. And this is how you create songs. I'm gonna show you a crazy little thing, right? You want this to be obviously longer than 10 seconds. See where it says 10 seconds right here? Well, I'm gonna show you how to loop it. Oh, perfect. Not just like you can with the bar, but if you want to make it longer than 10 seconds, I can do that for you. Well, let me show you. If you select from this point on and hold your shift, mouse went away. If you hold shift and go to your left, it highlights that part of a clip. And now what next? See what's above it? That feet peak kit. Hold shift and go up on your arrow of your keyboard. You just now selected 2 of the clips. What next? I'm gonna give you a special example. Not a special example, but a special command. You ready for this? You're gonna need to hit Command D. At the same time, hold Command and press D a lot. Command D D D D D D D D D D D D D D D. What just happened? Well, you just exported it. See that little fancy smancy thing? This little magnifying glass? Well, if you want to, you can do a shift on your keyboard and zoom out. Do you remember how to do that? Shift plus is to zoom in, but shift minus is to zoom out. Oh, cool. Here we go. Is that how it works? Yeah, that's how it works. If I wanna, you can click over the whole thing. All right, so this allows me to create an arrangement. How do I do that, Kay? The most basic way to create an arrangement is to take the dominating factor out of the beat. And I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Let's press delete. Select the clip where it's hovering. See where it's hovering? Select it and press delete. What just happened? You just deleted the clip. Press play. But K, it's still in the red. It's still in the red. I don't understand. Let me go ahead and tell you something. Now at this point that you made it this far, you can start worrying a little bit about it. I would say not to worry about it a little too much. How did you just do that? Do what? You just made the tracks bigger. Well, there's this function on Ableton where if you hover right below tracks, you can make the tracks bigger or smaller. And I want to look at everything. Let's go ahead and make the tracks bigger. Basically, you're just able to see it bigger. And if you want to turn it down, what's going on? All right, well, this is what we're going to do. The loudest thing that's making this really loud is the drums. I'm going to give you guys a beautiful thing to do. Turn everything down. Select both of these, hit shift, select. See this little thing here? Because you have this selected, see this little volume thing here? Well, they're both in sync because you have them shift selected. Shift and select both the tracks. Type in, click one time, type in -10. -10, type in -10. Now watch this. But it's so much more quieter. It's for a reason. Why? You need headroom. What is headroom? Well, I talked about this in the gain video, but headroom allows you to be able to turn things up that are too quiet. And you need to be able to work with a little bit of headroom to make things louder. But the only way to be able to make things louder is if you turn the louder things down and work your way up. Red often indicates clipping, but if it's a stylistic thing and it's not noticeable, don't care, dog. Do what you want to do. If you want your beats to be loud, it's a perfect way to do it. Matter of fact, the craziest thing is this is all sidebar, but folks who are making I'm a piano, they don't care if it's in the red. It sounds better. Richard skipped to me and said -2 LUFS is ideal. That's what we want to work towards. I kind of want to turn it up though. Sure, go for it. Turn it up a little bit. That sounds better. All right, click on Love TKO. Turn up the sample a little bit. Now I'm just kind of using feel. Now, Kay, what if I wanted to take out the drums? Well, I'll show you how to do it. Click this and press delete. Ooh, perfect. That's great. But it still feels low. It still feels low. What do I do? I'm gonna just tell you what to do, big dog. That'll be for a later video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. That was just me being a little tutorial on how to, the basics of Ableton, the absolute basics on how to create and use Ableton the way they intended it. We'll get to that.